Good afternoon and welcome to my latest webinar. I'm Cathy Cress and we're really glad to have you here. Today, the webinar is going to be on how you can essentially sign up desperate families who are going to call you during the busiest season for care managers. And the tools that you'll be able to use to sign up those desperate families and also get them to a place where you can implement a care plan through the chaos of the holiday season. Keith Manensky and I are going to be answering questions at the end, so please hold your questions until the end, and I will be making low-cost offers at the very end for products that I have, and so stick around until then, but write your questions down and we'll start. Okay, so get ready for the holiday rush. And the holiday rush is for you to get a lot of clients. But you first of all have to have marketing to reach them. And I'm going to cover marketing, what the marketing you should do before the holiday and during the holiday. And then once you sign these clients up, the tools to help these desperate post-holiday families start to resolve their differences in the beginning of the year, not on January 1st, it never happens, but move them toward the implementation of a care plan. And you can see, this is, a typical mad holiday horror that, happens very frequently, unfortunately, and we'll really get into that. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, here's Julia Roberts again and Meryl Streep, and Julia is just, she's had it. She's pummeling Meryl. And what is Meryl? Meryl is a pill user, a pill abuser mother. She's conserved. Julia has to conserve her, and they're at a ritual. I'm going to talk about the holiday ritual, but they're at a ritual that is, basically a wake. And, Julia like heard Meryl say one more crazy thing and she went after her. Well, this happens in these families. And this is August in Osage County, and it's a really famous play, but I'm just trying to bring to you that rituals, and we are into a big ritual season, can push families over the edge, especially aging families. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay, I always do this. I'm going to do it fast. Why can I teach you that? I'm the author of the Handbook of Geriatric Care Management and Care Managers Working with the Aging Family. I have taught at Berkeley, San Francisco State, and the University of Florida in Masters in Care Management. And I owned an agency for 25 years in Silicon Valley and Pebble Beach, California, where all these crazy families lived. And I also am obviously an expert in geriatric care management, but also the aging family system and midlife siblings. And I wrote these books. Care management managers working with the aging family, I think, is the most important because it's clinical and they're the skills you need. And I wrote the only operations manual, which I'll talk about in the field. So we'll move on. My co-presenter and here he is. He and I have been together for like 10, 15 years, it seems. Keith and I taught together at the University of Florida care management program. And Keith has been helping me for, I think, about 10 years now. He was the graduate level instructor in the GCM program at the University of Florida. And he's always been an active member of the Florida Aging Life Care Association, which has the toughest job because it's in the most crazy state with the most crazy governor and the most seniors. And ALCA has to protect them as best they can. Keith's part of that crew. And he belongs to ALCA and the National Council of Dementia Practitioners and the National Academy of Certified Care Managers. So he's a great guy. Thank you. And we'll move on. Okay, this is what we're going to cover today. Two subjects. First of all, the clinical, I'm going to do clinical and marketing. The clinical are the steps you need to work with these families post and pre-holiday and post-holiday. First of all, the clinical, part of intake. You've got to be able to clinically understand how to do a two-part intake pre-holiday. For the normal, there are three families I'm going to cover today: the normal, the dysfunctional, and the long distance family, which I really have not really gotten into before. How to use tools once you sign these families up to contain the holiday chaos, because there they are, the grandchildren are there, the adult children are there, the older people who are flipped out now because somebody wants to take charge of them. How to essentially do a geriatric assessment and do a care plan in the middle of all that madness. How to move the family to New Year's stability, which does not start on January 1st, but at least you can get the care plan implemented. And also we're going to cover pre-holiday materials about the warning signs you give to these families pre the holiday, and sometimes they call you post-holiday, of what to look for. What did they see? That was really a bad sign. We'll go over that. Then I'm going to do pre and post-holiday marketing. How do they find you? You're the answer, but how do they find you? And it's marketing. So we're going to go through social media, a speakers bureau, which I routinely give out as part of my classes, how to set up an e-newsletter, blogs, where to go there, webinars. I'm doing one with you, but you too can do it. And they're very, very powerful mechanisms for marketing, and how to pitch free PR to the local media that will really help you. So we will move on. Okay. When the holidays turn into a debacle, which they often do. And I'm going to do this in three frantic families that face these holidays. First of all, there's the nearly normal family. I'm going to go through that. There's never a normal family, and this is an aging family. Dysfunctional family, the worst of all families to deal with in unique clinical skills. And the long distance family, which I'm going to talk about in depth because they can afford you. And I'm going to explain all that. We'll move to the next one. Next slide. Okay, these nearly normal families, what do they call you? Well, they're really ahead of the ball. They have been monitoring their parent for a long time on a regular basis. They've been, flying out, seeing them, going there in emergencies, which push them over the edge. They understand that they need to bring in help at some point, but they still dread it because they are a normal family. And, they don't want to take charge of their parent when the parent doesn't want to be taken charge of. But also, they don't want to be the caregiver anymore because they've spent a ton of money and under incredible strain to be able to do this long distance care. So when they gather during the holidays and it's the last straw, like dad's drunk again, or he's wandered, or mom burnt the turkey, they agree as a family they can't delay any longer and they have to call the care manager. And this brown line is a link. Just click on it and you will go to my YouTube channel, which is all about caregivers and care managers. And there's a whole playlist about the nearly normal family. We'll move on. Okay, an intake with this nearly normal family making the sale. It's usually the adult child who makes the call, one of them. And this is how you do an intake according to Cathy. First of all, there's two parts to it. In the first part, you have a high-touch, experienced staff member answer the phone and do the intake, not just the answering service, not somebody that you just hired and doesn't know what they're doing. High-touch, experienced. And they need to use tactical questions to gather information for you to close the deal. You, the big cheese, the owner. First of all, they're going to get the main problem. They're going to ask about the main problem. That's really important for what you're going to do is create a small care plan. The most important are the challenges that two people face, and you're going to ask that. The challenge that they, the care provider, have in caring for this family member. That's a pain point, and the pain points are really important. The second pain point is, what is the older person experiencing? Their pain points, and this is how you really handle this whole intake. And then lastly, the most important problem the caregiver wants solved. Once that's down, they get all the basic demographics, name, all that stuff, address, etc. The next thing you do is have that highly experienced person tell the caller their fees. And that's usually, a decision tree where they won't actually even maybe sometimes want the 30-minute free consultation. But usually if it's okay, and care managers don't charge that much, that experienced person's going to ask if they want a 30-minute free consultation. Okay, now they're going to move. We can move to the next slide. That consultation is not going to be done in the next hour. You're going to have it several hours later in the day or even the next day, so that you, the big cheese, can put together a mini care plan based on that first call, on the pain points. So you want to offer, you the big cheese, a very simple mini care plan with solutions based on those 2 pain points and the main problem to make the sale. Because if you go to a doctor and, you're coughing and hacking and it's, and the doctor, does all the things doctors says you have pneumonia and you do have pneumonia, you trust that doctor. You want the client the inquiring client to trust you. So what you're going to do is give very simple answers to that pain point or those pain points. I need to move my mother and she doesn't want to move, and what am I going to do? We have a move management service that can help you. My mother will never listen to me. I'm a geriatric care manager. I'm very objective. I will work with your mother as an objective party. Things like that, that make them trust you and think that you're going to remove their pain. And so after that, you're very close. You're not going to actually go out for 3 hours and do this geriatric assessment, ask for a deposit after you spend 3 hours, none of that, no driving. You're going to ask for the sale in the phone call. And you're going to ask them, first of all, just like a car salesman, are you ready to move forward? You've got to say that. And if they say they are, tell them that you are right now in this very moment going to send a contract through DocuSign. It goes through right away. And Adobe, I don't like Adobe, but DocuSign too. And then ask for a deposit. And always, you can ask me at the end about deposits, but always ask for a deposit and use PayPal. And immediately through the intake, you've done everything and not going out and driven 30 miles to spend 3 hours and have the client say, I'm not ready to move forward. So let's move to the next slide. Okay. So if the dysfunctional family inquiry is calling during the holiday, it's usually, again, the dysfunctional family. And you have certain other things that you need to contend with them. They only want the best care because they're in the upper 10% or sometimes the upper 5% or the 2%. And they expect the best. So you are going to offer them the best. You're going to use gold standard language, like a spa, like a hotel. You have to learn how to do copy editing and to use language that very wealthy people are very used to. You're going to give them the gold standard care. You're going to solve their immediate problems, and you always tell them that, and which I just told you how to do in an intake. You're going to deal usually with a dysfunctional family with denial. You say, I told you that my mother's falling, and you're going to figure that out. But you know what? My mother always made everything up. She would act sick and, get us to make dinner all the time. She's a faker. Well, that's denial. And then you're going to learn to deal with objections, because even though they have a lot of money, they don't, they will give you all the reasons they can't pay for care. You're going to have to learn to deal with objections and caring. This is the hardest part, caring for a parent who didn't care for you. And often in the dysfunctional family, these were not well-nurtured children. And now they're adults and they're very angry, but they have no template or model to care. And you're going to give it to them and you're going to tell them that. So you're going to move to the next slide. And with his dysfunctional family, you know, like I said, they were never taught to give and receive. They don't work as a team. They don't know how to work as a team because, I mean, look at Donald Trump. Some of you might like him, but he's very good at pitting groups against each other. And that's often what happens in the dysfunctional family, and maybe among his children, we don't know. But they've never experienced working as a team, and they're difficult to work with because of that, but they've never experienced a normal ritual. I mean, their holidays have always been fraught with, you know, families drinking, drug addiction, you know, just, you know, horrible. It wasn't, you know, a lovely holiday. And so they are unhappy, disconnected people, and caring for a parent, again, that never cared for them. So what you're going to offer is you as a template. Bunny Dibness often says it's the use of self, but Steve Barlam as well, famous geriatric care managers who wrote in my books. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, now the inquiry call, when it comes, you know, to you, the top dog, you're, you know, there's a two-part inquiry call, and now you're going to, you know, take that with a dysfunctional family. You create this mini care plan that I talked about. You tell them how you're going to solve the immediate needs of the problem and the caregiver. We talked about that. You're going to use clinical tools to deal with denial and these objections that I talked about, and get the contract and the deposit. So it's the same as the other, but you're dealing with the nearly normal family, but you're dealing, you know, with more difficult families, and you have to learn how to deal with objections. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay. And what do you need for this dysfunctional family? You need clinical skills to handle what I'm just talking about, rejection and belittling, because they're going to do it to you. They will belittle you. They will reject you. They will mostly be very demanding and very critical of you. And you have to, you have to have tough skin here. You have to be really objective and understand that it's not about you. It's just about the way that they deal with everybody. And so what do you need? Your training needs to be either 5 years of practice and credentials, or you need to be in an agency where somebody has that, who can mentor you. It's good to have an LCSW. It's good to have an MFT. MFTs understand family systems, or an MSW. If you're an RN, it's really good to have a social worker working as a team with you. But lots of times, you know, nurses deal with psychosocial things as well as physical things. You need to know about facilitation and mediation, because these difficult families need family meetings, and you can facilitate them. And when you can't and they're totally stuck, then you need to move to mediation. You need to know about that. There's a whole chapter about mediation in my Handbook of Geriatric Care Management, and facilitation, or you know, dealing with these meetings with the crazy siblings, that can be dealt with, you know, by learning how to facilitate, and that's in both of the books too. And aging family therapy is really important to understand that, and also belonging. ALC is a fabulous, you know, group, and you know, they have lots of webinars themselves with experts in clinical skills. And finally, you need to understand undue influence and abuse, because that happens all the time in the dysfunctional family. And again, that's in the book, so you can move on. Okay, so you've got the contract signed, everything's copacetic. What are the clinical skills to contain this dysfunctional family once, you know, you start with them? And this is in the middle of a holiday season. So you need to do a geriatric assessment when the grandchildren are there, the adult children are there, everybody's kind of hysterical, and learn how to do that. You need to create a care plan and know how to do a geriatric assessment. I know a lot of care managers that don't really. That's really important to learn that, because how else are you going to find out what the problems are? And then you're going to create a care plan from your geriatric assessment and solve the immediate, I mean, and remember, it's the middle of the holidays, solve immediate presenting problem, and then basically address those 2 pain points. And you've got to establish boundaries, because a dysfunctional family will push everything. They'll call you on the weekend for no good reason unless you up the fees to call you on the weekend. And then you've got to identify roles and conflicts. Because what do you need to do? You need to implement your care plan. And, the family will stop you just by fighting with each other, and, one child having more power than the other. You have to just throw them off balance for enough to get the care plan implemented. That is your singular job. And so that's identifying obstacles to the care plan. Does one sibling have more power over the other, and the other one really hates the mother more than the other people do? You've got to really be able to assess this family and its problems, and what problems are going to stop you from moving into your care plan. And, essentially act as a client advocate. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay, how to move the dysfunctional family to a new year's shaky stability. You're not going to solve everything by the new year, but at least you can get started. And that's coaching sibling rivalry and favoritism. That's why I wrote that whole book. The main offenders in the family are going to be the siblings, because they've learned to take it out on each other rather than against parents when they were young, because it was their parent. You have to immediately intervene in elder or fiscal abuse, and you need to really learn how to do that, or have somebody in your agency really understand it, but you should. And then monitor and reassess the elder's needs, because really what you're doing is you're taking care of the elder. And you can't solve the problems of the whole family, but you have to, manipulate the family long enough to do your main job, get care for the older person. So the caregiver roles, who's fighting with who, the conflicts, make available quality of care and have that as a product that you really want to offer, because it's not all about the declining body. It's about declining joy. And that's what quality of life is about. And try to put that in your care plan, and then continue to realign power, because that's the power dynamic is really what stops your care plan so many times. And that's who's in charge. Is it, you need, because somebody's going to take the older person was the titular head of the family. Somebody, one of the siblings, has to take that power, after this. Is it the right one that will help you with a care plan? You really need to analyze that. And if you're totally stuck, you need to call in a mediator. And mediator Bunny Dibness, who's often on the listserv, and ALCA is a geriatric care management mediator. She does a great job. But you, as a care manager, you can facilitate a meeting, but you can't mediate. It's a wholly different thing. And again, there's a whole chapter in book, and we'll move on. Okay, the third type of family is the one that's really, it's of great interest to me, because these are the people that you will be dealing with over the holidays. And the long distance family has the greatest average cost of all caregivers. They, sort of around $9,000 in out of pocket cost. And these are all links, so you can, find out all the information behind what I'm saying, and if I'm really telling you the truth. But this is really important to you. Long distance care providers are in the upper 10%. They can afford you. And there's a whole article behind that, but basically they are the ones that went to college. They moved off from the family. They got good jobs, and they're in the upper 10% because of that. Where people who live in a town and stay in the town, and you can see all the stats in what I've given you, generally have less income because they didn't go to college and they haven't, made enough money. So long distance families are somebody to really target for you as a business owner of a geriatric care management agency. And the New York Times, you can click on that, has a great article about this. And, long distance families, or they're not always who you think they are. They might be subway drivers. They might be bus drivers. They might be truck drivers. They're anybody that has a defined pension, especially teachers. These are people that weren't paid much during their whole working career, but they got a defined pension rather than a flimsy 401k. They can go down the Rhine if there's any water left. But they can afford you, and they are really important for you to pinpoint. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay, now we're going to do a poll, and Keith is going to do this.
Yeah, hi, Cathy, and thank you for that introduction. So let me go ahead and start the poll here, and let's see if it shows up on your screen. Hopefully it does.
Yeah.
So just choose one out of the question is, what 3 topics do you tend to get calls about after the holidays? Here we go. We're starting to get some, can you see those, Cathy? Can you see the?
I can see them very clearly, Keith.
Okay, great. Wow. Anybody else? We'll just a couple more seconds there to see if anybody else wants to weigh in on this topic. Okay, so let's just review just for a minute here, Cathy, and you can share with me because you can see the screen as well. Interesting, dents in the car didn't get any responses for dents in the car. Although that does happen, that may not be it's probably more related to the most frequently calls that we get after the holidays, which is concern about safety. That came in at 77% of the respondents said concerns about safety, which is probably related to dents in the car as well.
Yeah, it is.
And or weight loss, maybe too. Forgetfulness would be up there. That's at that would be almost tied. It is tied with parent denies the need for help. Definitely. So we have 54% parent denies the need for help and forgetfulness. We have poor hygiene and weight loss coming in. And even before those, we have long distance caregiving as being a concern about. And that would also, I would tie in with concerns about safety as well. I'm sure they're concerned about their safety. So that would be a long distance caregiving issue. They're coming in at 46%. And then weight loss and poor hygiene would come in at both at 8%, with dents in the car not registering at all. Well, there you go. You have your
Okay. Thanks, Keith. Thank you.
Okay,
very
you're welcome.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
So these are really important. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them, but these are, things that you can send out in webinars and, in all your marketing to, show people who go before they go to Thanksgiving, which is only next week, or the holidays. This is what to look for. And they always do need that. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, so I'm still on this long distance family, and I can see that some of you have worked with them. The National Institute of Aging, and again, this is a link, everything's back there, just click on it. The average long distance family lives an hour away. And about 15% of the caregivers in the US are long distance care providers. So there's a whole lot of them. And they're living an average about 450 miles away, which means they're flying. Very expensive right now. But even from afar, they're providing these are good families. They were raised with normal rituals, like Christmas was happy. Hanukkah was happy. So, it's only normal for them to take care of their parents, but they've done it, spent all this money, and they've done, set up all the paperwork. You can count on them for that. Medical communication, flying in, in crises, and they're probably burnt out. So long distance care providers are in the top 2%. They can afford you, and they really need your help, and they're probably going to call you. So we'll move to the next slide. Okay, marketing to reach these pre and post holiday families. I'm going to go through setting up a speakers bureau, how to blog, how to get into Google My Business, very important, Instagram, offer a webinar. We're going to go through how to do that, use email newsletters, which aren't just Constant Contact and SurveyMonkey. Another is Elder Pages Online. You might be familiar with Natasha Duchamp, and who she is, basically one of the great ALCA helpers, and we'll do a newsletter for you. Creating a podcast, I'm not going to do very much about that, but setting up interviews on the radio, which is free PR, and we'll go through all that. So we'll move to the next slide. Okay, how to choose the right email newsletter. And why are email newsletters so important? Because they, it's just like using a megaphone. It gets everything out that you want without you going out. And during COVID, that's probably important. But, people do read email newsletters if you have great stories. I'm going to talk about that. But there are a lot of choices. It's not Constant Contact and SurveyMonkey only. You also have TheraLink, and you can click on all this, Doxy, and then other choices that are all the most important point. You want a HIPAA compliant e-newsletter platform, and they are all HIPAA compliant, and they are a little bit less expensive. And so we'll move on. And here are some ideas for e-newsletter story ideas. Just what we just did, the poll, warning signs that your parents need care. Well, you can embellish these changes around money. I'm not going to read them all, but you can do an e-newsletter story right now, just covering, these points and having some good graphics. So, it's all possible right now. Most of you know enough to be able to write that. And so that's your beginning e-newsletter story idea. And we'll move to the next slide. Blogging on social media. Well, I blog twice a week, and I know a lot of you don't like to blog, but blogging is really important because around 60% of people read blogs about once a week, according to HubSpot, and you can click on that link to see if I'm right. Small businesses and large corporations can create informative content for readers with little or no cost, and that's really important. So this is a cheaper and a very effective way of marketing. 1/3 of adult children are on social media. So you want to blog on your website. You can, update, you should, have a Facebook business page, and from the business page, from well, we'll go through it, WordPress, Wix, or Elder Pages Online, which is Tasha's business. You can actually blog on all on one thing. Like I use WordPress, and I'm able to blog on several different sites just by clicking one thing. It's really a great thing to get. But you want to blog on your website. You'll always want to do a Facebook update because people really, follow, even though I don't agree with Facebook, it's great for messaging. You always want to do LinkedIn because you're, dealing with referees, other people like you have businesses. And it's really important to push Google My Business. And I'm going to explain a little bit more, but that really validates you as a gold standard service. And again, WordPress and Wix and Elder Pages Online, which is Tasha Beauchamp's, she will blog for you as well. And you can just click on any of those links and find out more. Okay, we'll move to the next slide. Okay, social media. What do you have to join for pre and post? Join LinkedIn again, because they're professional referrals. They're coming from people that have businesses like you. And you want to develop a profile and get testimonials. LinkedIn is a great source to blog on. And again, you can blog on all these on one site. You don't have to go from, blog from platform to platform. And you want to join groups in LinkedIn, like Aging Life Care Association is there, but there's about usually 30 or 40 groups that have to do with aging, and you want to join as many as you can. You want to create a Facebook fan page for your business, very important, and that link will help you right there. And then learn Pinterest. Pinterest is, a lot of women are on Pinterest, I guess some men too. But there's geriatric care management actually on Pinterest. And then Twitter, I have really mixed feelings about. I don't like Elon Musk. I think it's really, it's not your demographic. It's, if you want to go into it, you can. Usually it's people going, nah, 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 like Elon Musk. So that's my opinion about that whole thing. We'll move on. Okay, a Google business page. This is why it's so important. And Tasha Bouchamp will tell you the same thing, and she knows much more than I do. Customers can Google search the name of your company, and it's like a brand new telephone book. So it's really a validation of your gold standard service, because Google will confirm you as not a fraud. And people do trust it. It's like the goal, the good housekeeping seal of approval. And if you can get a high trust rating from Google's algorithm, and then you actually, your blog goes to that, and to Instagram as well. At the same time, you just have to have a picture, and you always put a picture, in a blog. But it's really important to do that, because you can get testimonials and put them on your site, but you could have made them up, like a lot of food businesses did and gotten in trouble. With Google, they go direct, the testimonials go directly to Google, and they find out whether it's a fraud. So it's a really, really important thing for you to do as far as social media is concerned. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay, then you want to launch a Zoom webinar series. And there's great advantages to a webinar. You promote your agency as an expert in the area. You showcase your GCM's knowledge of COVID-19. It's still around. And, you certainly can, bring COVID into what the webinars are about. You establish yourself as an authority in the field. That's really important. You establish yourself as an expert, as a professional, and someone that potential clients can, turn to and trust. Most importantly, it's free publicity. I mean, you do pay the subscription part, but I mean, this can go not only out throughout the country, but it can essentially go worldwide if you wanted to. Webinars can cover huge territories, so it's really worth it. Most important, you get everybody's email with the webinar, and then you can add it to your email database so that you can send out more information about yourself and your business. So it's a really circular kind of positive marketing cycle that you really create by essentially a webinar. So we'll move to the next one. Okay. So, what you want to do is give a pitch for coverage for your webinar. And it's sort of like old journalism. What's a pitch? Who are you, your local agency? What, and I'm just giving you an example of a webinar you could give. Webinar, winter illness, blues, and risk of death back for seniors this year. And, that always happens during the winter. Older people get very sick, flu, et cetera, and they get depressed. And so that's the blues. And you can do a whole webinar about that. And it's so time worthy right now. Why do you do it? Because, what you're telling people is what family caregivers can do to prevent really serious illness and really serious depression, isolation, and loneliness, where it's all there in your webinar, and you can invite speakers to your webinar. You may not know everything, but you can bring in somebody who does. And then you can, cover almost any other story. So webinars really are very easy to do if you get really catchy titles that are relevant to the exact time that you're doing it, which is why I'm doing this right now. And we'll move to the next slide. So let's go on to public relations, TV and radio, which is free PR. And you want as much free media, you want as much free marketing as you can get. And so that you can promote the webinar actually through your own local papers. This is, in your community where there aren't going to be long distance care providers, but there will be family that have long distance family. So you want to create a media database, and the media database is usually in your geriatric care management database. Almost all of the 4 that have care management databases, you can create a media database in there. And in that media database, you want to put all the local papers, and papers are always looking for stories because they've lost advertising to social media. And, they're desperate for things to cover, and they'll cover you now, if you have a really interesting story, and a webinar is a good one. And then in the media database, you want to put the names of all the reporters in that media, whether it's a newspaper or a radio station, is specifically the reporters that cover health, COVID, aging, and then pitch the story. Then you want to find the radio and TV stations rather than just the newspapers. And I'm going to talk about how to pitch in a minute, but you want to tagging in a marketing database is like, think of it like a funnel. There's a tag that says media, there's a tag that says elder law attorney, there's a tag that says upscale assisted living. It's a way to organize. And so just have your media database in your essentially in your marketing webinar, in your marketing database. So we'll move on. Pre and post holiday webinars. Webinars are actually some of the highest converting forms of marketing. They position you again as an expert. They make sales really easy without selling hard, like without being a car salesman. And you can communicate with hundreds of people from anywhere, all over the country. But what do you need with a webinar? You need a landing page. I use Constant Contact. You need webinar software, and I use Zoom. So that's, I see as a good choice. And topics. And, I just gave you one topic for a webinar around now, warning signs that your parent needs care. If you saw this over the holidays, so you would just use those warning signs that we just went over. Let's move on. Okay, create a speakers bureau to draw adult children. Well, I offer this to all the classes that I teach as a way to let people in your community know that you're there, because most of the time people don't know what care management is. So a speakers bureau is using a series of hot topics to present to clubs. Upscale ladies clubs, fraternal organizations, family councils at nursing homes to draw potential clients. And I've put together a whole series of hot topics, actually 7, that I give out to my students in the form of a canned speech for the clubs, EAP groups, or anybody interested in having you speak. And the way I've put it together is everything is done ahead for the speaker. So I have a whole checklist of exactly what you need to take ahead of time, methods to make the calls. I even give you a letter to send to the clubs, and then you follow up with a phone call. The entire topic of the speech and the 4 points you need to offer, the handouts to give out, and the time frame. And this is a really critical marketing tool for you, your GCM agency, to use to draw a future bank of customers and collect emails, which is really important. So we'll move to the next slide. The advantages are, the same thing I've been saying about the webinars: expert in the area, knowledge of hot topics, authority in the field, agency as an expert professional in your community. And the people, the agency everybody wants to turn to when their parents are losing it, which happens, millions of times a day, and it's free publicity at Speakers Bureau. You don't have to pay for anything. You can advertise for free, and then you can collect those emails afterwards, and I show you how to do that, what to bring to get the emails, and we'll move to the next slide. Okay, creating a Speakers Bureau to draw adult children. Most important, again, future bank of clients. And what I've done is I've given the people in my class 7 different pre-planned speeches with everything: how to prepare, what to bring, what, you know, 4 topics to give out. And I've done one on the sandwich generation, when siblings aren't doing their share, the giant problem everybody has. Travelers in Time, which is about aging, when your parent needs to be in a nursing home. Quality of life, I have a whole speakers bureau on quality of life, which is how to bring joy back. Handling the stress of caregiving, and something that is very relevant to the holidays right now, when a parent needs care, the warning signs. So I've already got 7 of these, and I've given a checkoff sheet as part of it of what to take, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually have a new offer that I've never made before, that I will make, what I always give my students, available to anybody that takes the webinar. Which all 7 packages and all the parts that, you know, it makes it almost easy peasy to set up these speakers bureau. And it's $150. It's a really good price, and you get a half an hour to consult with me about how to set it up. And we'll move to the next slide. Okay, now we're at the end, and this is when I usually do offers, and then we're going to do questions. So we'll move to the first one. Okay, the first offer is, I, you know, usually offer this. This is just my operations manuals. There's 2 of them, a operations manual and a forms manual. They come electronically. What they have are 15 different services and products, because usually what care managers say when, you know, they're talking to a potential client, what am I going to do for you? I'm going to do an assessment. Nobody knows what an assessment, and that does not answer pain. It's no pain point for assessment. What the hell is it? Don't do that. You want to offer products that are going to assuage the pain. My mother wants to move, and she, you know, she won't listen to anything I say about moving to a higher level of care. I have move management. My mother has dementia, and I can't get her to move to a higher level of care for dementia. I have a dementia product, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 15 products, and step by step in the manual, how to deliver them step by step. A separate forms manual, I talked about that. They're electronic, they just get sent to you. And it's a training manual. It's a manual to train anybody else, because you have a lot on your plate as the big cheese, the director. My webinar offer is $550. It's usually $650. You can also subscribe to it if it's too difficult to pay that amount of money now. It's $70 a month for 11 months. And there's a whole new thing called PayPal credit. And if your credit is good, you can go to PayPal and ask for PayPal credit. They will lend you the money at no interest, which is a great deal. And you can just pay for the class and then slowly pay them back. So I just found out about that from Tasha Bouchamp, and it's a great piece of information. And then the regular price is $650, and you can have it for $550. You just have to email me. Go to my website, cathycress.com, or you can email me at cathycress.com, and we'll move to the next one. The second is the geriatric care management operations class. This is a self-paced class, takes 1 year to complete. It includes for free both manuals. It's electronic. Alka has given me 57 CEUs for free for you for taking the class, 3 CEUs per class. So you get that. There are 22 modules. Even though there's 15 products, because death and dying takes 5, there's 5 stages of death. And, you know, death and dying is a really important product. And home from the hospital, which is 3, pre-hospital, in the hospital, out of the hospital. So that makes 22. You also get 20 hours of free consultation with me, and I charge $200 an hour. And marketing, not only delivery of each product, but marketing to it, free tech support, because we're in Canvas, which all the UCs use. It's a very good, you know, platform. And it's normally $950. And if you get in touch with me by the 22nd of November, you can have it for $850. And subscriptions and PayPal credit are another way to pay for it. And we'll go to the next one. Offer number 3 is my business class, and this is for beginners or somebody that had to begin again. And this is a GCM business class from soup to nuts. And it's not in Blackboard, that is incorrect. It's in Canvas, which is what all the UCs use in California. It's a very intuitive platform. It's a great platform, and we use that now. Again, it includes 2 operations manuals for free. It's self-paced for a year. There's only 10 modules in it, but I will give you a template for everything I ask you to do. I will give you a business plan. We cover that, and you have to adapt it to yourself. I will give you marketing. I will give you sales. I will give you a financial forecasting template to find out when you're going to break even. And the price is normally $850. It's $750 for the manual if you get everything in, or the subscription, or PayPal credit. And you need to tell me you want that by the 22nd. And you can find out more on my website, cathycress.com, or just email me at cathycress.com. And the last one is the Speakers Bureau. And it's the first time I'm offering this. So it's a complete package to market to adult children. You get directions on how to find and contact local clubs, including a template letter to them, a list of contacts, all the women's clubs in the United States. You can find your own women's clubs lately, like AAW, Junior League, the fraternal clubs, which are really important, that support the community, like Rotary and Lions. And Rotary, I live in the second smallest county in California. We must have 10 or 15 Rotaries. Rotaries all over the place. It's a great club, and they always love speakers. So you can go in and talk about your business and, get new clients through it. And then symphony guilds, any kind of musical society, because older people tend to, really gravitate to, actually, I'm old and I like classical music. And you get 7 pre-made speeches, as I just said, with what to bring, everything to say, what to do at the end, and all the steps to prepare the speeches, which is, what is included, and a complete package to set up the Speakers Bureau, and a 30-minute consultation if you want to do this with me. And you just email me at cathycress.com. That's not an email, excuse me. You go to my website and there's a contact section at the very end, and just click on contacts and you can get in touch with me. And we have pushed through this. So this is my next webinar. I'm going to deliver a good end to life at death and dying. That will be on January 24th, which 2/23. Again, it's a free webinar, and I'm going to cover all these points. I've done this several times and had a lot of people at it. It's a great webinar. And we're going to add at the end, which I haven't done before, the role of a death doula. And I'm going to have a death doula as a panelist. And the registration link is right there, and you can register ahead of time.
Hey, Cathy.
And yeah.
James, I'm just going to mention that I'm going to share the PowerPoint link so people can click on these links.
Okay.
And I'll just send that out right now.
Okay, great. And I think we're moving to the last slide, which is, this is the social media to follow me. You should have your own social media with your own pictures, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll move to the next slide. I think that's it. Let's see. James
I do
is working
believe it
behind
is.
the scenes.
Yeah, that's it, Cathy. That's the last.
That's it. That's it.
You're on a roll. You want to keep going here. You're looking for more
No,
slides.
no. I've said enough. I've said enough. So now Keith and I are going to answer questions, and we always have to pull them out of you. So would you please start sending Keith questions, because I can't imagine that you don't have questions after all that information that I've given you. You can see Buddha in the background. I am in my winter office. I am from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey, and I have never been able to live in California. It's cold and it's damp. The lady is a Tramp song. And so the warmest room in my house is down here with the Buddha. So this is my winter webinars set. So Keith, are we getting any questions?
Yeah, we do have a few, and thank you, James. And James, maybe you can weigh in on this as well. There's a number of questions regarding getting the slides for your presentation, and associated with that, the links that are embedded in your slides. People are saying they can't click on them and probably couldn't, given the nature of this webinar.
Right. When you get it, you will be able to, but
When
James
you
is
get
going to do his magic.
Yeah,
I
and
must
James
add, and I didn't really say this, that if you want to do webinars, James will put in how to get in touch with him. James is a miracle. He's just the greatest. Keith and I used to like try to do it ourselves. It was it wasn't a disaster, but it was funny. I don't think too funny to the people that were watching it. James has made it faultless, and he's great. And if you want to contact James, James can really help you with webinars.
And there you
'Cause
go. There's his, he just put his link up
That's James. He's wonderful.
to the chat box there. So to answer the questions about, yes, you will be getting a copy of this presentation soon, tomorrow, the next day, whenever tomorrow is the next day, the day after. And all those links will be available to them. And I don't know what, James, I didn't click over to the chat, but they may be available to them now, but I would wait for the webinar so you could have everything in context, right? You have all the links that you have, and there's a lot of them. I tried to do it while you were talking, and I said, there's just too many. So I abandoned that project pretty quickly when I saw.
Well, this is truth in lending. I want you to know that what I'm saying is really true.
There you go. Well, I've never known you to lie. I've known you, like you said, for at least 10 years now. If we go all the way back to our UF days, that's 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
Back to that.
I know, I'm 78 now. When I started, I was like 35. I'm old.
Well, let's get to the questions then here.
Let's go for it.
Hopefully we've settled the links and all that kind of stuff, and everybody is happy and satisfied. So the question, any thought to promoting the GCM business class, offer number 3, to new GCMs? It would help them. This is from GF Harris.
I would love new GCMs to take the class because it's a really good class. It starts with, who's your competition? You got to find that out for a zillion reasons, because you want to position yourself ahead of your competition. And as I said, every single thing I teach you, I give you a whole template for. You're not going to reinvent the wheel here. But by the end of the 10 modules, you're going to go on solid ground. And if you look at any of the recommendations that I have, I really am a good teacher. I was actually trained in a teacher's college. And so, I'd love to have new, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me and they're a new GCM, I'd be always willing to, help you sign up.
So the classes are really available to just about anybody at any level. Is that
anybody can take them?
Anybody at any level can take any of the offers that you have here. Okay, great.
Yeah, and we have this whole new thing that we just added, Canvas, which again is the UC platform, has the ability to set up these virtual rooms. And so I've created a support group out of all the people in the class where they can go off and virtually just talk to each other and become a support group, and help each other do the homework, help them solve problems. And it's really been a miracle. And I'm so glad that, I finally got into that. So you can join the support group of everybody that's doing what you're doing, starting a business.
Okay, here's a technical question, and I don't know how to answer it. It says, this is from Nancy. She says, thank you. I've watched other webinars, but can only find the link to the video, but not the links she mentions in the video.
Well, if you're talking about the YouTube channel, the YouTube channel is the whole channel. You can see me age in that, it starts when I'm 35 and now I'm 78. But you just go to the YouTube, Google Cathy Cress YouTube channel. But what I'm you know, what the link will go to, you know, when you eventually get, you know, the copy of this, is one of the playlists that has to do with the nearly normal family. But I have playlists on the dysfunctional family, playlists on long distance family, and a playlist is usually a sequence of 6 different sections of one topic, with me in whatever stage I was with my hair, with my weight. You will see me a lot heavier at some point. And then I had a hip replaced and lost 30 pounds. So, you know, you can check me out.
Full disclosure there, huh, Kathy? Hopefully, Nancy, hopefully that answers your question. I'm not quite sure, but I hope it does. We'll move on then to the next question here. And it is from Malika. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
Oh, I know Malika. She's great.
Okay, Malika is asking a question. In your experience, where did you find most of the family caregivers who need support after the holidays? Where did you find most of the family caregivers who needed support after the holidays? Actually, they
You know,
found me.
I would say the long distance care providers, and that's why I've really centralized what I've done with you on long distance, because really they're you know, they are in the worst shape. They spend the most money, they are exhausted, and usually, you know, the final straw breaks the camel's back on the holidays. And so you really want to do marketing towards them.
Would it be fair to say that the closer caregivers, or the ones who live in state or nearby, have more or better access to the patients?
If you look at the research, and I have that in the links, the closer, and it's very interesting to me, the caregivers who live closer in the same town, they've seen it, you know, they've been watching them all along, and they have less money. This is the problem, because they haven't gone to college. Usually, if you read the article, people go to college and they actually earn more money, but they live far away. So the people who live nearby usually don't have the resources to pay, not just for a caregiver. Caregivers don't charge that much, but for in-home care, which is, you know, as we know, $4,000 a month. So long story short is it's really the long distance care providers that you want to provide for. It isn't to say that people who live in your community can't afford you. And one of the things that I teach in my business class is how to find the richest neighborhood in your area, or the richest neighborhoods. And that's through a hot map. So I have a whole, and I've done that in webinars. I've showed people how to do hot mapping. There's a really inexpensive one to do that I give all my students. And just like you want to move to the best zip code for your kids to educate them, you want to find the richest people who can afford you, because it's very expensive for home care. So you can get somebody to hot map, and I show you how to do all that. But there are rich families that live nearby, is what I'm saying. You just have to find the neighborhoods.
Through zip code, through county, however, right? Through
No, it's zip codes. It's all zip codes.
Okay.
And they color code it. It's really a miracle. Used to do the census, which is a nightmare. And now you just, you know, do hot mapping.
Okay, thank you, Malika, for that question. And let's move on to the next one here. And this is from Stacy, who's asking, what platforms do you use for webinars?
I use Zoom. That's where you are right now. And then as a landing page, which is, you know, I do all my newsletters over there, but I collect, you know, I send everything out there. And actually Zoom, you know, Zoom will give me everybody that signs up for the webinar and their emails, and then I move it over to Constant Contact and send out the marketing through Constant Contact. So Zoom and Constant Contact, but you know, Constant Contact is more expensive than other platforms. That's why I've given you all Doxy and a number of other platforms that, you know, are HIPAA compliant that you can choose from.
Okay. All right, great. All right, next question here from Susan, We typically send the service agreement at the end of our first call with the family and ask for a follow-up or Zoom call to go over it 2 days later. We are investing time to find the fit with family, but this doesn't always seem valued. Any comment?
I really stick to my guns about doing the two-part intake. And, getting this, not 2 days later, but, at least 4 or 5 hours later to put this mini care plan together and then call. You know, I think it's useless to go out there and drive all that way, spend 3 hours. And then, what you're opening up is an opportunity for them to say, well, I'm not ready to move forward. It's a waste of your time. And really, in the beginning of a business, you have a zillion things to juggle. Do you
Yeah.
have the time to do that? You want to get BAM, but you have to really deal with these pain points. The pain points are critical. So that's my suggestion.
And but also by going to the house, you're sort of setting yourself up in a situation where you really can't get out of there, and they're going to start picking your brain for answers. And whereas in a phone call, you can say, "Oh, 30 minutes are up," or you can, it's an easier
Yeah.
exit out of a phone call than it would be out of somebody's house or their
Right.
residence, or ALF, wherever they happen to live.
And if you're really honest, those pain points, I know I'm just like beating a dead horse. I hate that. I love horses and animals. But I mean, pain points are the way that you do this, because you want to be able to answer the pain the care provider's having and the pain that the client's having. Because who's going to sign the contract? The care provider.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Susan. And let's go on to the next question. This is from Joanne. What do you
Nice.
do when, Joanne, what do you do when children of client refuse your suggestions besides document, I guess, the refusal? And I've explained my reasons to them. I'm assuming she's explained her reasons to the children, or to the payee in this case. But when they refuse your suggestions, what do you do besides document that refusal?
Document it.
I guess write it down and
Well, document it. And I want to tell you a story. I tell all my students this story, but this is a true story. So when I was working in Monterey, we did an intake, and it was a guy that had dementia, and his conservator had asked us to do it. So we drove all the way there, did the intake, filled out all the paperwork, because he didn't have computers at the time, and put it away. 10 years later, we got a call, not a call, we were called in to Superior Court through a subpoena, and we had to go in. It turned out this conservator had embezzled millions of dollars, and we were the only ones that had evidence that the guy was demented and was vulnerable with elder abuse. That was a shock to me, but I always tell this story, write everything down, keep your notes. And one of the great things, ask when you want to, and my students all know this, but when you're figuring out which client database to use the ones that have the best, notes that they keep for you. Because sometime or another, you're going to end up in my spot. Because these are families that fight all the time, and elder abuse is always happening.
It's a big deal, yeah, for sure. And they want to put you in the middle of this argument, right? They
Exactly.
want to put the they want to put you, because they want to blame you for these things that are happening.
Right.
They're not going to accept the responsibility, but they want to blame you. But getting to her question here, if you don't mind, if I stick with this for just a minute, that doesn't really explain what you do. Documentation is great support for yourself, and in the event that you're ever called to the court and so on. But how do you get around? Now, a mediator in this case may come in handy, where if you can't resolve the issues, say the issues are safety of the person, they keep falling, but the people don't want to either hire a caregiver for eyes on, or buy a walker, for example, or approve physical therapy in a home, whatever the situation may be. How do you work around? You want to find a common ground with the person who's resisting your suggestions. Am I correct?
Well, okay, I will use an example of a student that I have whose name is Joanne. And this student was hired by a wealth manager to do an assessment of an older guy. Well, the older guy hired private caregivers. One of the caregivers was bringing her husband over to sleep during the week. He had tried to jump out of the car at one point. And so the wealth manager called Joanne in to figure out the best place for him to be. Well, she put down every single thing that was a problem, and there were huge problems here, jumping out of cars, etc. The wealth manager was not too happy with the geriatric assessment she got, but Joanne had documented all of the things that wealth manager needed to do, so that if that man fell out of the car and died, or, you know, who knows, with his husband sleeping over, or all the other problems, the liability was going to be on the wealth manager, because Joanne had put in exactly what needed to be done. The care providers were not legally hired. So Joanne did the right thing, and that's what saves you. And what you're saving yourself for is the liability.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, because there's thousands, millions of different reasons why they might refuse your suggestions. A lot of it may be guilt, maybe money, you know, lots
You
of
may
different
not
things.
get the case, but you want to say, as a professional, this is what you should do. A, because it's moral. B, because it's good professional. But 3, the liability isn't going to come back at you, and you have proof that you told them to hire these care providers, and that their husband couldn't sleep over, and no, they couldn't let the guy fall out of the car.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move on then, because time-wise, we have to keep an eye on the time here this
Yeah.
evening.
James has got to get out by
Please.
3:30, and we're talking fast.
We're going to keep moving along here. I hope that helps you there, Joanne. Okay, you got a shout out here from, I'm hoping I'm saying Mela, who's just saying hello to you, Cathy. I don't see any questions here, but she's just a shout out to you. Great, thank you.
Okay. I
Don't see any question there related to that. GF is GF is back again. Looks like with a couple of points here as a solopreneur, which I've not heard that term before, but I like it, for 16 years, and participate in the solopreneurs MRGs. Not quite sure what MRG stands for. I often hear new GCMs with business operational questions that indicate their need for guidance. Perhaps you speaking with Julie Wagner regarding offering your program to new GCMs would be helpful.
Julie and I talk a lot. I mean, Alka was very generous to give me, the CEUs. I have done webinars for Alka, and I can still do them. But I've always trained new GCMs. I mean, I've been doing this for, well, me and Keith have been together for 15 years. So I'm always open to, and Alka really does know about me.
Well, they know a lot about you. Yes, they do. They are very aware of what you're doing and where you are.
I'm very opinionated.
They know a lot about you.
They know a lot about me. But I am, I mean, it's copacetic. My relationship with them is copacetic, and they know that I work with a lot of students.
Yeah.
So it's a question of the students reaching out to me, really.
And you do offer, see, they do recognize your ability, because 57C. I think for what, 2 years, you have to have 50, I believe, for their.
Yeah, it's absolutely
the
worth it, and then
Right,
you
yeah, you
just
get
take a little test for each module that you pass. There's 3, and you get the CEUs. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been a part of Alka for when it used to be GCM.
Yeah, the Professional Care Managers Association. Yeah, same here. Same with me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give you a couple more questions here still. And thank you everybody for the great questions here. I appreciate that.
This is the best. It's wonderful. Thank you.
This is good. Okay. Oh, all right. So we do have a question from, and I apologize for if I don't say your name correctly. I'm from Pittsburgh, so Kathy's from New Jersey, so I have a problem with speech. So again, Mayla or Myla, I currently operate a home care agency and want to start a GCM as well. That's a good combination, good fit there. Is that a good idea to combine them? Now, that was my opinion. Kathy, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the YouTube channel, I have a whole playlist about, you know, how to combine these two. And I, you know, I work with a lot of home care agencies to add geriatric care management because they can bill for what they can't normally bill. They can only bill for care management hours. And, you know, going to the doctor, you know, seeing people on a regular basis rather than every 2 months or 3 months by the time they've died. You know, you can bill for all that, keeping people, you know, rather than a crisis in a pre-crisis situation. So, you know, and care managers make triple the amount of money by having care management in home care. But it takes, you know, home care is a row to hoe and you have to set it up correctly. But if you have both of them, it's the ideal care management situation.
And correct me, I want to add just another thought to what you just said, and correct me if I misspeak here, but I would think you would want to do two things when you combine agencies like that. Number one, you want to keep documentation separate, documentation for the care management
Yeah.
separate and not mixed with the home care, and you want to keep your billing separate. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, yeah, you bill separately because care management, you know, home care is per hour. Care management is per hour, but it's much more expensive. So I had a home care agency with care management from the very beginning in 1980. We didn't know anything when we started it. And so we just thought that's what you do. It wasn't that hard, but you you bill separately. But you know, it makes home care so much better because you know you're really taking people off this precipitous ledge, and you know you're making the care pre, you know, you're avoiding crisis, you
Right,
know, and
you're
making, and you can
proactive
keep
in that.
you're
Yes.
proactive, you can keep your clients forever. You know, the client gets everything out of it. And but it's got to be a real care manager. I mean, there's so many home care agencies that say they have a care manager. That's why you do a competition survey. And they don't, you know, it's a phony, it's a fake social worker, as much as I like social workers because I am one. This is a very complex skill, care management, and you want a real care manager in there.
Like when I was teaching classes at UF, a lot of people would say, well, I took care of my grandmother. Does that qualify me to be a care manager? And that's not at all right. Exactly. You want to avoid those kinds of people who claim to have that kind of experience. It's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different level when you do it professionally as caring for. I was caregiver for my dad for 7.5 years, and much different ballgame compared to people you don't know as far as
Yeah, me too. In
providing
fact,
service.
almost
Yeah,
all
you as
care
well.
managers have cared for their parents. And you know what they do? They hire a care manager to help them because you're not objective. You're not objective about your parent. Your parent knows every button to push on you, and you know every button to push on them. And that's the beauty of you being a geriatric care manager with any family, because you can be objective and really help the family get the care they need rather than I'm not going to do it because I don't like you.
There's no personal baggage or personal history with that family.
Right,
So
exactly.
you have no choice but to look at them objectively because you're not carrying that, whatever those, okay, we're gonna finish this up here. It's about
Yeah,
almost
we got to get
6:20 here.
James out of here. He's got to go
Yep.
to San Jose.
We got another shout out here from Gladys who's saying they're expecting snow in New Jersey, I guess pretty soon here. So we won't see snow here in Florida. You
No,
might not see
not in
snow where you are
California.
in California.
But yeah, I miss New Jersey.
Garden State. Yeah, it's a beautiful place to live in Trenton, by the way. Just
No, we
not such a
never want to
beautiful
do that. No.
no. So gives you a little bit of my background. Okay, a couple more questions here. What platforms do you use for intakes and notes?
Well, you know, you're going to use a platform that is in your care management database, but you can upload the manual to your database. And you can use, you know, in the manual, I have forms, obviously. And the forms get loaded into the database, whatever one you choose. And then you can use the form that I use to do the intake that has all the things that I just talked about, the pain points, etc. So I give you I give you, you know, all the tools to upload into your database, and they all take them, all
Yeah,
four of them.
there's a bunch of them out there now. There's
Yeah,
a slew of them out there. It wasn't when I started, and I know there wasn't when
no,
you started. There was nobody out
no,
there when you started. So now you have
no,
quite a few to choose from, and you want to choose the one that fits your needs. You know, the one that
right,
fits.
exactly. But I think
Um,
they all upload the forms that I have, and so you just, you know, use my forms.
just plug them
And my
into their
products. They just
platform,
work.
and away you
Yeah,
go. Okay.
I mean, you
Yep.
don't even, I mean, if you, well, I won't talk about that, but go ahead, because James has to leave.
We have, I don't think there's any more questions, but Malin has clarified that back when she said hello, hello Kathy, but we've already answered her question about combining a good idea to combine home care and a GCM business. So we've already answered that. You've already answered that question previously. So we'll just move on beyond that one. And then we have one more. Okay, and this is Gladys is clarifying what MRGs equal marketing resource groups, and that's what ELCA has established.
Mhm.
Marketing resource groups.
That's
Okay.
good.
I'm
That's
not that
really
much in
good.
touch with ELCA right now, so I don't follow
Yeah.
along, but yeah, that is good. That is good. And that was the last question comment that we have here in our, thank you everyone for those
Yeah, thank you very, very much, and have
questions
a
and answers.
happy Thanksgiving
Holidays for sure.
yeah, all the holidays, all the rituals we're going to follow, and
And
thank you
expect
so
those
much for
calls from
coming.
from the long distance caregivers. You all expect those calls because they will
Be
come in.
prepared. Be
Yeah, they will
prepared.
be coming in once they see how their loved ones are doing. Because it's one thing to talk on the telephone, and another thing to see the rotten food in the refrigerator and the stains on the
Disheveled
carpet, and
mother, the burnt
disheveled,
turkey,
yeah, the burnt turkey that's been sitting in the refrigerator for a couple of weeks now, and all that kind of stocked up garbage disposals
unwrapped
and
gift, menorah's not there, you name it.
oh yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, you get to see that firsthand, and so you're scratching your head thinking, Mom didn't describe that to me over the phone. I wasn't all the missed appointments and the bills that haven't been paid. Yeah, you're gonna get all those calls. All right, everybody, again, thank you, and let's tune in again in January. We'll
Yeah,
be sending out notices about, I think you said on your
yeah,
presentation what it's gonna be, but I forgot
yeah.
to.
James will get it out tomorrow, the next day. Thank
Okay,
you
all
all.
right. Everybody have a safe holiday. Thank you.